What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my watch list ahead of Game Week 3. So going to go through some of the players that have potential to be options over the next couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about their prospects. So if you enjoy this type of video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you are new around here as well. And just because some people mention why I don't talk about certain players in this video, it is loosely based around my own team. So for example, some people will be thinking about getting Cucurella this week. He's not going to be on my personal watch list because he's already in my team. So we'll talk about him tomorrow in the transfer tips video, but he won't be included in this one. And likewise, it's going to be very hard for me to shift too many players in this team because it's already set up pretty well. So the main areas I'm looking at are possibly a Neto transfer out, maybe to fund a different move, maybe shifting Diaz to a different midfielder or moving that money up front or something like that. So that's how my team's set up. I'll go through it more in more detail in the team selection video. But for now, let's talk about some of the watch list players. So let's talk about Kyle Walker first of all. He has gone from 5 to 5.1 million. I'm sure there's a few FPL managers out there that were thinking of going from like Luca Dean, Matt Cash, Kieran Trippier straight to Walker, and now can't. The only good thing is a lot of people will have 2 free transfers, and possibly someone like a Neto or any 5.5 million midfielder or even a Leon Bailey that they can downgrade. And I don't think we should just completely forget about Walker because he's gone up by 0.1. He's still a good option. He's already averaging 6 points per match. And look, he's not an exciting player. It's one of the reasons I didn't start with him. That might have been a mistake. We'll see long term. But he is going to get you those consistent defensive returns, right? Which is why he's already on 6 points per game, because they've already got 2 clean sheets. They are controlling games like they always do. They give up so few chances. They are the best defence in the league, and I don't think there's any real discussion over that. There's other really good defences, Spurs, Chelsea, Liverpool, but they're not quite at the level of Man City. So he's still a really nice option. And if you look at the fixtures, Newcastle away, Palace at home, Forest at home, there's not really too many over that next 6 that I don't think they can get a clean sheet in, right? There's plenty of potential to get clean sheets in those games. Just a few points on him. One, I do see people talk about the fact that he's kind of playing in midfield, but if you look at those numbers, not expected goals per 90, 0.01 expected assists, he's not ever going to get you many attacking returns. He might chip in with the odd one here or there, but he isn't the second coming of Cancelo, for example. He might be in midfield in that 2-3-5 setup, but he's not the creative spark, and he's not going to be through on goal that many times. It could happen, but realistically, he's only in for the defensive returns. He's still a really good option. In terms of minutes, I think some people really want to label players either completely nailed on or not nailed on at all. And I think someone like Kyle Walker is just in between, right? He will miss some games over this season. At some point, Pep will play Cancelo on the right. He'll play someone else at left back, or he might play John Stones or someone like that at right back instead, possibly when the midweek matches start, European matches. It could be the case that Walker plays like 4 or 5 in a row, then's bench, then plays another 4 or 5. I'm not suggesting he's going to start missing every other game, but I don't think you can say he's 100% nailed on like a Van Dijk. But because of his price and because of the team he plays for, he's still a really fantastic option. And I had a quick look at the times he was benched last year. He very rarely comes on. So if he is benched, you're not going to get a cameo appearance like you might do with like a Chilwell or a James or a Perisic or someone like that. Obviously, it's not so bad with those players because they can get you attacking returns as well. But if you've got a decent first bench, then it doesn't matter. They can come on instead. So I think at 5.1, he's maybe a bit more difficult for people to get in. He is for me for sure, but there's still routes to get him. He's still a really, really great option, and that is why he's definitely on the watch list. So this is how bad things are right now. I've even slightly considered possibly bringing in an Everton midfielder. And I want to emphasise the word slightly, right? It's not a move that I think you need to go out of your way to do. You need to rip up your squad to bring one of them in. But if you think about the position that a lot of people are in right now, they're possibly looking at moves to get rid of Neto if they don't like that Spurs fixture and they want to play a midfielder in their team or in their first 11. Some of you will have Bailey and you might be looking to upgrade. And there aren't a huge amount of 5.5 million options. And again, I bring you back to my own team just as a quick reminder. Neto's on the bench. I could switch into an Everton midfielder with slightly better, very short-term fixtures and potentially bench one of my defenders. That's not an easy or obvious decision to make, but it is something that has at least crossed my mind. And I think Nottingham Forest at home and Leeds away in particular in game weeks 3 and 5 are pretty good, right? I think after that, you're probably looking to offload them. But the way things are right now, a lot of us are struggling to find transfers to make. And look, Nottingham Forest had a really good result against West Ham, but I just don't know how how West Ham didn't score in that game. So I think Nottingham Forest is still a defence I would target. Same for Leeds. Look, Jesse Marsh over the next 10 to 15 games might change my mind. Maybe they will be a bit more solid, but they are already conceding goals. It's something we've kind of come to expect from them. So I'm not really worried about targeting them. I still think it's good if you've got an attacker that's playing against Leeds. The problem is, the options are like Gordon and Gray, and they're not really that exciting. I think on the eye, Gordon probably looks like the better option. I think he's looked lively, if you want to describe him as that, in the first couple of games. They didn't do fantastic against Aston Villa. They were mainly a threat from set pieces. They did okay against Chelsea, not a huge amount of chances. But again, they've got the fixtures in the next 3 to maybe turn that around. The only issue is Gordon is being linked to Chelsea. Apparently, they've had like a £40 million bid turned down. Whether or not Chelsea will continue to go for him and land him before the transfer window closes, I don't know. But if they do, he's not probably going to get into that first 11 straight away. We're going to see a lot of games where it's Sterling, Havertz and Mason Mount, and Gordon will probably be off the bench, maybe playing maybe a few of the less difficult games, maybe cup competitions and stuff like that. But I can't imagine he would go straight into the side. So then you've got a dud in your team. So that does worry me a little bit. If those rumours kind of cool down a bit, then Gordon probably is the go-to. The only reason I've listed Gray as well is if you look at his career underlying numbers, I like looking at expected goals, expected assists, and I'm kind of ignoring the ones we've got so far. It's only a 2-game sample size, and they did play Chelsea. Gray is slightly better than Gordon. His underlying numbers over his career, they're nothing exciting, but they've at least been consistent. The caveat is Gordon's obviously still very young, had hardly any games in the Premier League, is still developing. There's everything to say that he could overtake Gray and how good he's going to be, right? So I think right now, if I had to pick one, I probably would go with Gordon. I also think he's probably slightly better for minutes as well. I think for what it's worth, these two will start most games anyway, but Gordon I would put slightly ahead for minutes. So he's probably the one I would go for if I do end up going for an Everton midfielder, which does seem unlikely, but I'm at least considering it because there aren't too many 5.5 options. So Gordon would probably be the one, but I think if I was worried about that Chelsea move, I think Gray is an alternative for sure. So to be fair, a lot of people did mention Gundogan last week. We even answered a question about him in the game week preview. The reason he's caught my eye this week is not necessarily because he's scored, even though some people seem to think I only put players in this video that score goals, despite just talking about Gordon and Gray, by the way. It's because he's got that second start in a row now. I don't think my opinion on him has changed that much since last week, to be completely honest with you. Yes, 7.5 million is potentially really good value. Any midfielder that starts regularly for Man City is going to be in the points. If you watch that game against Bournemouth, a lot of the time he was in and around the penalty box. Obviously, they usually play with like 1-6 and then 2-8s, but those 2-8s are very attacking, and it was often Gundogan rather than De Bruyne that was close to Haaland. So he's really good at playing that role, right? And he will get points if he continues to start. But I can't help but think a couple of things. One, Bernardo Silva is still in that squad. He is too good if he doesn't get shifted to Barcelona to be on the bench every single game. So he is going to get some minutes. That could be on the right wing. He could play as part of that front three, but I think more often than not, he's probably going to play as an 8. So I think that could happen. And also, Gundogan's not at such a good price that I feel like I have any rush to get him in. Like, I've got Luis Diaz in my squad. A lot of you will have like Mason Mount, Kulusevski, maybe even Foden. Do we need to downgrade them to get 0.5 million to spend elsewhere? Maybe some of you do, but for me, he's just at a price point where he's potentially really good value, but not such good value that I need to rush to bring him in and then see that Bernardo Silva starts and Gundogan gets benched. If he was like 6 or 6.5, which we've seen before, there's a massive case to just get him in your squad straight away. But for me, at 7.5 million, it's a wait and see. The upcoming fixtures are really good. If he's still starting for kind of Crystal Palace at home, Forest at home, then maybe we look to get him in. I just don't know if I need to shift my £8 million midfielder this quickly. So a lot of people have already asked me about Ivan Toney. Brentford got some really nice fixtures coming up, and they've already got their 2 difficult fixtures out the way in Leicester and Man United, where they've already scored 6 goals, which is pretty crazy, although not really when you see those 2 defences. If anything, the fixtures they got coming up are even harder. But just on Toney as an option, I think at £7 million as a forward, he's really good. He's probably the best option right now. I said that pre-season, and I think even if you know, after game week 7 you were looking to wildcard or move him on, you could go to Mitrovic when Fulham's fixtures get better. So he is a nice option, but I think he falls into that bracket where he's just not going to fit into most people's squads. And I think FPL managers really struggle with that. They identify someone that they know is going to be good, but then can't get over the fact they probably still shouldn't bring him in. And the reason I say that is most people are set up without a third striker. Now, this won't count for everyone. Like I said, if you've got a space for him, get him in, because he is going to do well over the next 5 weeks. But if you've got, say, a setup where you've got Haaland or Kane, well, you ain't switching them to Toney, right? You could go to Toney and then upgrade one of your midfielders, but I don't see many people doing that. Jesus has just got 19 points in 1 week and has 2 newly promoted sides in the next 2 game weeks. We're not getting rid of him either. So unless you've got that third striker, there's not really an easy route. The other option is maybe if you've got someone like Grealish or Coutinho in midfield, you could move to Toney. That would probably be a good move. But for those of us with like Diaz, Kulusevski, Saka, Mason Mount, we're probably not going to use 2 free transfers to go to Toney unless you really need that extra million that it would free up. The other move that I've seen a lot of people considering on stream last night was to switch Robertson to Toney. But even that, right, even without seeing the Liverpool Palace game, I just don't think I would do that. Unless you really need that 4.5 million defender, because obviously you can have Robertson plus a 4.5 million forward who's not going to get many minutes, or you can have Toney and a 4.5 million defender. And yes, that second combination is probably overall better if you need like an option off the bench or something like that. But if it's a straight up shootout between Robertson and Toney, there's not really much in it. And I think most people don't need to make that transfer. So am I saying that Toney's a bad option? No, I think he's actually really good for the next 5. But the way most people are set up, you're just not going to need to bring him in. Maybe that changes as Luis Diaz gets an injury tonight against Palace, and then maybe I look to go to kind of a 5-2-3 setup and have $1 million to spend elsewhere. But ultimately, yeah, Toney just falls into that bracket of, yes, we've all identified that he's a really good option. He just ain't going to fit in. And just to finish off with the watch list table, I'm only going to speak about some of the players because obviously players like Trent, Robertson, James, Cancelo, they kind of speak for themselves, right? You don't need me to tell you they're still really good options. I'm going to talk more about Cucurella in tomorrow's video, but essentially I think he's a very reasonable short-term punt. I don't think he's nailed on for the whole season, but right now he looks pretty good. And that is why I've put Chilwell with a red arrow, right? He is just not match fit. He is not someone to be bringing into your sides. If you did start with him, which I suspect most of you didn't, you can probably look to sell him. Ake, who I don't think I mentioned during the Walker part, could be an option if you need a £5 million defender at Man City and you don't want to get those extra funds to go to Walker. The thing with Ake, as soon as Laporte is back, he's going to be an issue. But right now, that probably isn't going to happen until September. So I think Ake could be good for minutes. So if you want a £5 million defender and obviously can't get to Walker now, you don't already have him, he could be an option as well. With midfielders, I think Bailey, yes, he probably is a sell. I think with Bailey, if he's your 12th man and you can just bench him, I don't think you need to rush to get rid of him. But if he's in your 11, I wouldn't really want him in there from now on. And obviously Grealish, I just don't think he's someone that you can buy. You could maybe hold on to him, but I don't think you can buy, right? It's already game week 2. He hasn't started. You just don't know what's going to happen kind of moving forward. Gundogan's on there as a blue because I think, yes, you could make a case to buy him, but I don't think we need to go out of our way to do it. I still think Foden is probably the better option. I know he came off at half-time, but hopefully Pep will forgive him for that pass that he definitely should have made to Haaland. And there's not really too much change with the forward. So that's kind of my watch list table as it stands right now. Let me know if you think I've got any of this wrong. Is there any players that you're looking to bring in this week? What about Toney? Is he worth shifting Robertson or one of your midfielders to just get him in and go 3 up front? There's nothing wrong with 3 up front. I just don't think many people are set up for that right now. If you have enjoyed that video, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here as well, and I'll catch you again tomorrow for another video.